Today, I am joined by James Farmer, a Southern interior designer and author known for creating spaces that are beautifully familiar, warm, and welcoming. Through his design firm, he has worked with clients across the country, including his hometown of Perry, Georgia, where he has proudly built his business. His work has been featured in Southern Living, House Beautiful, Traditional Home, and so many more, and he is the best selling author of over half a dozen books, including his newest, Home Again. In today's conversation, we of course talk all about design, but particularly decorating and transitioning into this new fall season, as well as the heart behind creating a home that welcomes not just family and friends, but life's special moments. So settle in and join me as we talk about home tradition and the art of living beautifully with James Farmer. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma Silver. James, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to chat. We have a lot of fun things to talk about today, particularly a new project. But before I start asking all the questions, could you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about what you do?
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me, Allie. I'm thrilled to be a part of your podcast. My name is James Farmer. I am an interior designer and an author. I live and work in my hometown of Perry, Georgia. And I also have a little shop here, A Place to Call Home, which is the title of one of my books. And I'm one of those kids who grew up and never left home, but I get to do what I've always wanted to do. And being an interior designer and author is just really a dream come true.
Could we talk a little bit about how this all, like, how did you land on interior design?
How I landed on interior design is I was born. It just happened. I truly, my mother would tell stories of me rearranging my room and doing what I could with pillows or tabletop as soon as I could walk. She always had a joke that she could set a pretty table and then I turned six and could outdo her with centerpieces and things. So I think it's one of those things I'm truly born with. But because of that, my family there was the nature, but they really did nurture it as well. So I attribute a lot to my mother and then my grandmother as well. And I was very, very fortunate to grow up in a small town. And because of that, it kind of forces creativity to become a lifestyle. So when you grow up in a small town, you know who the lady is who makes the flower arrangements for church, or the man who does the barbecues. The preachers and the lawyers and the doctors and things as well. But you kind of get to see a little bit of behind the scenes of how things work. And so if someone's having a dinner party, it didn't all come in from Atlanta or Birmingham or Charlotte or Savannah. We had to make it happen ourselves. And so I think that gift of growing up in a small town and seeing creative ingenuity work was huge. I then went to design school. I went to Auburn University. I'm a third generation of my family to go to Auburn. And my granddaddy said I could go wherever I wanted to college, but he would send a check to Auburn. So I thought, all right, let's go to Auburn. But I went to Auburn to be an architect. And I did my first year of architecture school there, and my professor said, "You're not an architect, you're a designer." It went from one of those moments that was life shattering to life affirming in a heartbeat. And I knew I am a designer. I love gardening. And so I was able to double major in landscape design, horticulture. And then I was also able to do art history. So that led to certifications and degrees that were important to me to achieve. But I just hit the ground running. I started decorating, my aunt's college roommate's living room when I was, babysitting her kids in nearby Opelika. And then she came home and I'd rearrange the living room. Or a friend of mine was getting married in college and I did the flowers for her wedding. So I've just always been doing this. So when folks ask, when did you get started or how, I just, out of the gate, I
Yeah,
started.
it's always been part of you. That's great. we'll talk today about at least one of your books. We'll talk, I mean, I'm sure some others will kind of
Sure.
be a natural part of the conversation. But a big part of your life is also entertaining. I don't know if we want to call it event design, but as a designer, you bring that to your events, right? So,
Yeah.
like, how does that all tie into your world?
Well, for me, there's a very fine line between, an event or, a client's living room. You're still
Mhm.
working with fabrics, textures, florals. You're putting resources and elements together, and then it's the end result. So an event is usually a little more short-lived. It's a night. It's a, it's there's a wedding date. There's an engagement party or whatever. What I love about the interior design component is that it's kind of the same theatrics, except for it's a stage for life, not just one event. So I love when I get a Christmas card from clients and they're their kids on the stairs and there's the Stark runner that we put on the stairs and the Chippendale railing we designed for the banister. And, so to me, interior design is much more of a stage for life. And Allie, for me in my life personally, we've had the big events. We've had my sister's weddings and my cousin's weddings, and we've had those big celebrations. And for me, right now in this chapter of life, the big events are those that aren't all the hoopla. It's,
Mhm.
you know what, the kitchen, I redid it and I love it. And it might just be Frank and me on a Sunday night having scrambled eggs. I love that. It's so that approach that I bring to my interior design projects is something that if a client wants to host a party, the house is ready. But if it's just the family, that's great too.
You use, I don't think it's in every title of your books, but the word home is very much a theme.
Ah, you paid
So,
attention, Grasshopper.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know this new project. It's sort of a return. You're touching on the fact that your own physical space and the way you're looking at events, there's an intimacy to it now where you're seeing that the intimate events are the ones that feel really big and special and important in your
Yes.
life right now. And so I'm curious how perhaps across books, and perhaps those were all different seasons of your life, but how home has morphed for you and what that means in this latest book.
Well, I mean, you touched on it. So the new book is titled Home Again, and the subtitle is A Return to Gracious Interiors. And that has such a meaning for me. So often with our clients, though, it's, hey, the kids are out of the nest and we want to redo the house. Or, you know what, we're downsizing. Or, you know what, we're building a bigger house because all the grandkids, we need whatever it is. But you were touching on, I use the word home in most of my titles. That is because home to me is an emotional response. House to me is like a dwelling. It's an architectural space. It's like, oh, that there's a house. But a home, that's Christmas morning. That's the smell of, supper on the stove. That's, oh, my sister got married in the backyard. It's my nephew's first birthday party. Home brings in another element, nostalgia, emotion. It's much more even spiritual in a sense. Home is very important to me. So my latest book that's out now is Home Again. And one of my favorite Carole King songs is Home Again. And my mother loved Carole King and always kind of had that on the background. And then jokingly, my contractor, he's a friend of mine, and called me one day and said, "Hey, you can go home again." And they had been sanding or doing something. And I went, "That's it. That's the name of the book. I can go home again." And I got to do what I often do for my clients, where, the contractor or will say, "Hey, y'all are welcome home again." And after a renovation or whatever. So for me, I love celebrating home, which is my last book. And that, as you look through it, it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving, it's a season that's lovely. And I have this firm belief that I like to be unapologetic about being home. That's okay. You don't have to say, "I'm sorry." You can say, "You know what? I'm home and I'd love for you to be with me." And I think that to me is like an ultimate sign of love and respect to your friends and family.
Perhaps this weaves into your love of entertaining, even. I mean, home is very much an experience.
Mm.
was kind of what I'm hearing from you.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah, so I think it's great that you encourage, it sounds like you encourage your clients to
Yes.
think about their design and their new space
Hmm.
in that context.
Yeah, use your silver, use your grandmother's silver. Really use it, and you can do that at home. Okay, a great story that just happened recently. We have some clients who their life changed. The husband had a health issue, and he had to be home as opposed to, leaving the house at 8:30 and coming home at 5. And he was, home during the day. And it was such a special place for him to be. So it changed rather than dinner out every night or at the country club, his job was to get better.
Mhm.
And he realized, that home is something special. I love a big event. I love going to a party, but there's just something so intimate about entertaining at home but using your stuff. I mean, open up that sideboard or that drawer, pull out that silver, pull out that bowl you don't use often, because we can be so, I can close my eyes and make coffee in my kitchen. I know each step, I know each way, but the little silver spoon that I use that, was really a bonbon spoon, but I use it to measure coffee or whatever the moment is. For me, that's choosing to celebrate.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that we almost had to have permission and grace granted to ourselves to think, oh, we can't do anything big at home because I don't have a full set. Who cares? Put it together, mix and match. And I think about the way that like my grandmother entertained and people always wanted to be at my grandparents and at my grandmother's table. And it wasn't because it was so fine or so lovely or fancy. It was just good. That's what I hope to portray for not only for my homes, but for my clients as well.
What kinds of projects, I mean, are you able to walk us through a little bit of the sorts of projects that are featured in this book and how you see them being similar, different to projects people could, I mean, obviously it's your work, so there's a common theme there, right?
Sure.
But how did you go about selecting the projects that you featured?
So one of the questions that was just recently asked to kind of piggyback with your question, there was a lady who came in my shop and she said, "Well, who did this house?" And I said, "I did." And she said, "Well, this house is in Martha's Vineyard." I said, "Yeah, I can get on a plane." We always say from Perry to the ferry. But interior design, doesn't have to be contained. We can work remotely. We can talk to contractors. So projects from Mississippi to Martha's Vineyard are in the book. So what I hope the common thread is that you have a common denominator of maybe certain styles or furniture arrangements or maybe a pattern or two. But we have a saying in my design firm, and it's the same but different. And so you may have the same green velvet sofa, but it may be different because you're in the mountains and this one's on a farm in Alabama or whatever it is. That said, is we take the same approach, but for different clients. A great example would be a couple of the houses in there. One's the whole second floor of a condo, and you would never know it. Or another is a guest house on Martha's Vineyard, and you never know that the Atlantic Ocean is just down the street. And so we have to take the same approach with everyone. It has to be pretty, it has to be functional, it has to be lovely, but it also has to be practical for the way we live. Grandkids, this is their bunk room, or this is a guest room, and it gets used by a lot of people through the summer. So I love that I can create these places to call home to go on with another title and then of my store too. But a place to call home really is very evocative, and I
Mhm.
want those emotions felt. And so the approach is, well, this is a business and this is how we do select things, but it's not arbitrary. It's very thoughtful. And there's a reason why someone hires me and my design team.
Speaking of common themes, so could we talk a little bit about, I don't know if we want to call it your design philosophy per se,
Okay.
but how do you describe your style or your design?
Traditional, but there's a twist. I think I always look back to history and to heritage. I love the way, rooms were arranged before a television. It's almost like you could arrange it like, oh, I wish I could put a chair and a table there to catch the morning light or whatever it is. So I try to approach it in that way to give each room form, but function. For me, my kind of design philosophy and foundation, I had a design professor at Auburn who said, okay, anyone can put together a solid, a plaid, and a floral with like an animal print, ottoman or something, and it always looks good. But a real designer is the one who can say, "Oh, I found these two vases at an antique store and I'm gonna make them into lamps." No good lamp started life as a lamp. Or, a good designer is going to say, "That table is awesome. Now we're going to cut 18 inches off of it and it's a perfect coffee table." Whatever it is. So I think there is a formula and a foundation to design. You can have a solid sofa, add two floral pillows and a cheetah bench. Sure, looks great. That's a formula. If that works for you, that's awesome. But there is an element of design that is hard to put into actual fundamentals. That to me is what is constantly inspiring me. And I love being able to do that for my clients. I may not be able to find the perfect piano or bow front chest or sideboard. It may have been her grandmother's, and that's it. That's the epicenter right there, and everything bounces off of that. There was a living room that I did for a client in St. Louis, and she said, "I just cannot figure out this room. This 100 years ago, this room was a ballroom." I'm like, "Well, now it's not a ballroom, but we divided it into kind of like three segments because it's just a big room." And I love being able to give homage to the past, but know that it's kind of fun to sit in a room and, scroll on Instagram or listen to a podcast. So you have to kind of give it that balance with each one. So the fundamentals and the foundation of design, they are really fun to think about. But if you've got that unapologetic little bit of bravery to say, "I'm going to break the formula just a little bit," that's where the magic starts to happen.
What sorts of conversations are you having early on with your clients to kind of figure out what that formula looks like in their household? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. A great example. So an early conversation. Just this morning, I met with clients who their house is, under construction. It's dirt and gravel and cinder blocks right now. And today's meeting was about the dining room wallpaper. But we have to talk about that now
Yeah.
because by the time the wallpaper is painted and finished, the walls will be up. Right now there are 2x4s. There's no real walls. But you have to think about those things. And so interior design, I always say, is about 10% talent. The rest is all logistics. How are you getting that sofa from Middle Georgia to Martha's Vineyard? Or how do you take a lamp that you found in Texas and you get it shipped to a project in North Carolina or whatever it is? So there's so many logistics involved. What I hope that we're providing early on to our clients is like, I know the whole idea started with this picture of this wallpaper that you loved, but before there's a wallpaper, you got to peel it back. So I honestly see a finished product and then I kind of take it apart almost like an onion, layer by layer by layer. It's still an onion. You take off a layer, it's still an onion. It's still there. It's still there. But I have to start with that finished product and kind of back off to get to where, well, he wanted wooden bookshelves in his study, but you have to have the right stud structure in the walls. We always like to try to set a client's expectations, but know what they're wanting up front. So the installers and the construction people know how to allocate.
Well, you talked about layers, and one of the questions I had for you was because I think that's something that you do very well. Could we talk about layering a little bit?
Oh, love it. Let's definitely talk about layering. It's one of my favorite subjects. So with layering, like I can give you a formula, Allie. I can say every coffee table needs fire, flowers, and it needs, a candle, it needs some flowers and maybe a bowl of fruit. So give it some fire, give it some flowers, give it some fruit. Well, that's nice, but up under the flower arrangement, maybe you've got a stack of books. Or maybe the bowl of fruit, maybe there's green apples and then there's another bowl of fruit and it has red pears. And this layering that creates some personality. It also creates flavor. And so the best example that I always use is salt on a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, there's nothing better than a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, it just works. But you sprinkle a little sea salt on a chocolate chip cookie, it's like, wow, I just added salt to sweet. And there's vanilla, there's chocolate, all the things are working together in that cookie. Same thing with the layering. So if you have, a big, let's say you have a big jute or sisal rug and you have two seating areas, you can then define those seating areas with smaller Ushak or Tabriz or Haritz, beautiful carpets to kind of anchor those areas. Also, with layering too, is you want to be able to establish those heights. So if everything is on the same ground plane on a coffee table or a console or a sideboard, our eye just kind of sees it the same. But once you give it some different, a stack of books, or maybe it's a butler's tray, or maybe it's the way your latest, few magazines that you love are fanned on a coffee table. That layering to me is that invitation to express your personality. But the best way to really start with layering, in my opinion, is with nature and the season. So right now on my coffee table, it's this kind of chinoiserie bowl that has some bright green apples that I bought at the farmer's market. I have some hydrangeas that have faded to kind of that kind of pinky color in a glass vase. I have some latest edition of a couple magazines. I have a new candle that I'm loving from my shop. That right now is so this season to me. It's going to change in a month. I may see a pumpkin at the farmer's market, or I may see, peaches in the summer, or whatever it is. So that layering to me really starts with the seasons, and it's such a great way to get your personality expressed. Because when it comes down to it, we all have the same kind of thing. We'll have a sofa, we'll have a chair, we have a table, we have a sideboard, two lamps, whatever it is. There is that formulaic response, but the layering, one picture's great, but why don't you stack another one over it? Or
Mhm.
here's some silver picture frames on a grand piano. We'll add a vase of flowers on it. So I think there's a way to layer to really, really express personality for sure.
I do want to get back to seasons in a second, but
Oh,
I
good.
also don't want to forget to ask you, you mentioned Martha's Vineyard,
hmm
obviously, Perry, Georgia. Obviously, you have a strong connection to home. How does that play into your work or how you're trying to bring a space alive?
I really think that when we pay homage to place, when we say, okay, we're on Martha's Vineyard, or we're in Oxford, Mississippi, or Birmingham, Alabama, you can pay homage, respect, honor a place, and sometimes you just have to be a little unapologetic. And so, like in Martha's Vineyard, we have these sailor's knots that are in the pleats of the window treatments. So it's a sailing town, it's that little knot, it's a couple framed, nautical flags. It's red, white, and blue without being red, white, and blue. It's kind of coral, cream, and cerulean. It's kind of this twist on that tradition. So to me, the place is it's that place, it's that jumping off point.
Hmm.
Like I went to Auburn, third generation, love Auburn, and we have a client's condo that we did there, and I mean, truly looks smack on the campus, but we don't have tigers everywhere. But what we do is Auburn's famous for some of its oak trees. We have artwork with oak trees. We have a fabric that has acorns in it. There's little things like that that you can pay homage to a place, and then I love a touch of kitsch. I love a touch of something kind of fun. Like a really fun example of that is there's a project in the book, and it is in the low country of South Carolina. And I found these ceramic white herons at a junk store. And they're huge. Y'all can't see me, right now, but Allie can attest. I was
We're
waving.
providing scale.
Yes, we're providing scale. Y'all use your imagination. And I'm like, these are hilarious. They weren't fine porcelain. They're not stamped with some mark by some artist in Italy. No, these are total kitsch. They look fabulous on the George III mahogany sideboard with the silver tea set. They actually look great. So sometimes you need that little bit of, here's just a little something to say it's okay. Or artwork, for example, we did for a client. She loved to cook, and she loved, kind of antique cooking instruments and utensils. They're not practical today. They're just not. But a few copper molds hung with some beautiful plates in a butler's pantry, there's that homage to that. So you can certainly say, hey, here's where I am with artwork and accessories without being too on the nose. But it's kind of fun to have that little bit of, where did you get those cranes or herons, or, where's that seagull painting from? Or that's what keeps it from being precious.
Are there things about your town that you pay homage to in your own home?
One homage that I play to my home is in the artwork and also in some of the building structure.
Okay.
So I have brick floors and exposed brick walls throughout my home, and the brick was reclaimed from an old church locally that the church part of the church burned, they tore down, and I got the bricks. And so those bricks are made from the clay, from the soil that, I grew up on. Also, like my floors are all heart pine, which here in South Central Georgia, heart pine is what we have. And so we use that. That's what I do to kind of pay homage to place here in Perry. Also with artwork, we had a local artist that my parents and grandparents collected, and I have inherited those pieces. Are they what I would buy at a chic gallery today? No, but I can't replace them. And they are a postage stamp that takes me back in time. So a couple of them I've updated on the frames, but other than that, I love the subject matter, and a frame is the game changer for artwork. So building materials and artwork to me are those homage to the place because once you look out the window, you know where you are.
Going back to seasons.
Hmm.
So we are, of course, entering fall. And I know that looks a little different for everybody depending on where they're located, but are there
Right.
things that you particularly either are a part of your tradition to weave into your home from a
Yeah,
design, or things that you think help to just make the transition for people a little more comfortable, a little
sure.
homier, cozier? I think that's kind of where we all lean in, right? We try to lean
Hmm.
into the shift of the season. So do you
Yeah.
have things that you want to talk about for fall as we get ready?
Absolutely. Well, Allie, this is a very happy topic for me. I love fall and I love, layers and seasons. But I have to quote my nephew, Jack. He's 4 years old, and we were up in the mountains over Labor Day weekend. And in the mountains of Western North Carolina, it's fall.
I was going to say it's probably already.
There were pumpkins and mums at the farmer's market. And so Jack asked me, he said, they call me Brubs. That's my family name. He said, Brubs, is it fall time or is it Halloween fall? And
I
I'm like,
love that
that is a
distinction.
very
That
deep
is so
question.
accurate.
And they're two different. So, we're just buying pumpkins. There's some really pretty apples. The bittersweet's not out yet, but the hydrangeas have turned. And so to me, it's like, oh, it's the start of fall. It's not Halloween fall. And I knew exactly what he meant. It's
Or
the
it's not
children.
spooky. Like he's completely right. It's not October.
No, it's not October. So I love a season like within a season. And so to me, September is the most under celebrated because it's like peaches and pumpkins. Like truly last week we had peaches at the farmer's market and now we have pumpkins. So it's a little bit summer, a little bit fall. But I think for your home, if you are able to have a home where, like, I have a room that I sit in more in the winter time because I love the light in there and I love the fabric and the textures more for winter. But then I have another room that's more cozy for the summer because it's just cooler. And so if you can architecturally kind of amend your home for the seasons, that's great. But we all don't live like that. And so if you can have a neutral enough home aesthetic, then you can welcome and usher in any season at any time. Not to say it all has to be white, beige, and gray or whatever. By neutral enough, I mean you're not changing your pillows and draperies every season. But if, to me, I always go back to the coffee table. If your coffee table can have the fruit, flower, the foliage, and the fire with the candle, great. That's kind of it. It's the best way. Your kitchen counter. I don't think you have to have a complete redressing of the set each season. But one thing I do love to encourage my clients and then also my friends who are just like, James, what do I do? I'm like, don't hesitate to celebrate. Have a party. And it doesn't have to be a big party. Have people over. And so when you have people over, immediately you're like, oh, wait, I did see apples at the farmer's market. Maybe I'll do an apple crisp for dessert. Or, oh, I love butternut squash ravioli or whatever it is. So I think there's a way that you can usher in the seasons into your home based on the menu, based on what's on your kitchen counter, and you don't feel like you have to change all the pillows or the draperies. It's really one of those things that you can live in your home in different ways from season to season, and that's a really fun way to approach.
Do you do anything different with lighting? That's a really specific question, but I always think about lighting in the fall. By the time February rolls around here in the Philly area, like desperate for like
Something, yeah,
for sunlight. But
we
this
need
time
it.
of the year, we get eager for like a warmer ambiance. Like, do you change anything lighting wise, or is that a weird question?
No, it's not a weird question. I think it's very spot on for what we try to create with our homes and what I also try to, emulate for my clients as well. So for me, if you want to talk about light bulbs, here, I'm your boy. I'm telling you what, we can talk light bulbs all day. I love a warm, soft white light bulb. And I also love more of a kind of a creamier sugar linen shade. Those two kind of work together. So for me, I'm more of a warm tone person. So I want Benjamin Moore linen white or ballet white or China white or, those are warmer, creamier whites. That's going to be my trim and my cabinets. And so then for my lamps, I want my lamps to have soft white, warm white bulbs, softer white shades. So that's kind of my constant. But
Mhm.
like what you're saying about like into the seasons with the light, I totally get. In the wintertime, I will have every light on that I can. And, but in the summer, I may never turn on that fixture in the living
Yeah.
room. So I think it's okay to give yourself that grace and permission to say, I need some light and turn every light on. But when it comes to loving a lamp, you're not going to find someone who loves a lamp more than I do. And I think a lamp is I just think it should be on at all times. You can turn on overhead lights for different tasks and different purposes, but keep the lamps on. And to me, that helps the kind of that fading into fall and winter time, and it kind of gives you that glow as opposed to going from light to dark and then snapping on a lamp. Leave them on or have on a timer to get turned on when you come back from work. I think that's a huge thing. Lamps to me are the answer to so much.
Are you layering lighting then a lot too?
Yeah, so I do. I love for my lighting, I've got to have can lights, I've got to have a light fixture, especially over a table or to fill the volume of a space of a ceiling. But lamps, they're on tables, they're on sideboards, they're also, they can be floor lamps, they can be task oriented if I want a little brass lamp by the sofa for reading. So I'm layering lights just as much as I am furniture and fabrics.
You mentioned gathering and this season being kind of, I mean, any season is about
Right.
gathering, but you touched on inviting people over, apple
Yeah.
crisp and soups and that kind of thing. So there's an intimacy and a coziness to that too, which I think kind of ties into sort of this new theme that this next book is centered around.
Hmm.
So, of course, there's in the fall, easing into winter, larger celebrations,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, things like that.
Right.
But if we were to talk about smaller gatherings, what does that intimacy and the smaller gatherings mean to you in this season of your life?
I love a dinner party of like 6 to 8 people. I mean, I cannot get enough. If I'm at a big party of 6 to 800 people, it's too loud. I'm like, wait, I want to go to bed. Wait, do I really have to wear a belt and shoes? I have to think of these things. So, what I'm looking forward to now in this season, especially this season of my life personally, I love those small, intimate dinner parties. What I like about it is that, it's easy to cook for 2 or 10. It's all about the same in a sense. But what I think has happened was in the last, I don't know, when maybe decade or so, we have such access to instant gratification of, well, I'll just overnight these candles because I can get them, or I can get these monogram, I'll pay for the rush shipping or whatever it is. That's not what it's about. It's about kind of being together. And so this is me practicing what I'm preaching. And it's to say, like, here's a great one. My priest and his wife are coming over for dinner with us in a couple weeks. We're cooking for them. It's on Monday night.
I love
Great.
that.
I love
That
that.
sounds
And
so nice.
doesn't it sound so nice? It's
Yeah.
not, it's not Wild Friday or Saturday night or whatever. But when we were trying to make the plans and things, she said, honestly, she's like, the only night we have open is Monday night. And I said, that's my favorite night because it'll be just the four of us. We will have the opportunity to talk to one another. It won't be too loud. And so that's what I'm looking for are those connections. Because even in our digital world, I mean, here you and I are talking from Pennsylvania to Georgia and all, but there's still something that can't be replaced with, having your pal or your priest or whoever it is right there at the table and being able to talk to them. And my heart's very full right now, Allie, just because we have so many fun things like that. And then Labor Day was great. We had great weather. My family was all together, and so I'm really looking forward to that. And in conjunction with the new book, I'm hoping that I convey that for our clients. And I tell them, I said, if you are needing a dining room for 20 people, I mean, you're gonna be renting a room at the club or something like that. So another great example, it was a client's home in Mississippi, and she said, "I need a space where I can put up a card table for, a few extra seats." But she said, "I don't really want everyone over every single holiday." And I thought that was so real. I love that. She said, "If we're gonna have more than the whole family, we'll just go out." And I went, "Thank you. Thank you."
She knows what she's doing.
She does.
She does. As you're saying Monday night, I was just having a conversation like this with my husband because I think we are well, we're entering a very new season. We were just talking about how weekends feel so busy because we have
Yes.
loads of nieces and nephews, and there's just always a game or
Her
a
birthday
family
or
Sunday
yeah.
dinner, or there it's just busy to try. I mean, we want to be in everyone's lives, and so that's what the calendar looks like. But we were just talking about why aren't we doing more with our people on weeknights?
Yeah. No, I get it. I
But
get it.
I think it's great that you're doing like a Monday night, and that just breaks it up too. I mean, that makes it feel extra special.
It does.
One of the things I wanted to talk about too, you mentioned, I want to say it was from your shop, a candle. I wanted to talk about some of that sensory experience in
Okay.
design. Visually, it might not always, I mean, of course, if it's a beautiful candle,
Right.
amazing. But I know you're also, because you're talking about home and experience and those sorts of things, I have to imagine you're thinking about like the sensory
Right.
experience.
Right.
So could we talk a little bit, especially as we get into such a delicious season. It's a feast for the eyes, the nose, the mouth. I mean, it's
Yes.
just,
Yes. I'm
there's
going to
so
borrow
much
that. A
going on.
delicious season.
Could we talk a little bit about what some of that looks like this time of the, well, I mean,
Yeah.
any time of year or in design in general, but especially as we enter fall?
Well, I'll give a great example. So I had some clients met with me and my design team today at my house because our conference room having some work done. And so let's just meet at Farmdale. So this morning I cut some branches of tea olive and put them in a vase. The whole living room smelled amazing and I loved it. So when it comes to those sensory pieces, like the best sense to me can't be really replicated in a candle or a diffuser in that sort. I had it was a mix. It was a banana bread mix. I mixed it up, put it in the oven, and it smelled good.
Mm-hmm.
In the bathrooms, I love good soaps, and I love to encourage people to, have nice soaps, not just the Guess soap. Use it. It smells good, but those sensory things I think you have to be careful with because they can get overpowering. But I think what is in season and at hand is what cannot be replicated per se. But I do think that there are some ways that you can invite the whole sensory experience in. You can have a speaker now anywhere, and there is nothing better than just like instrumental or soundtrack or soft. In my shop, we play a lot of like Sense and Sensibility and the newer version of Pride and Prejudice, those soundtracks, just because I love the piano of it. And there's a reason why piano or soft guitar or violin are so emotionally responsive. Since you can have a speaker anywhere, just it's just that little touch. It's just that little bit of, okay, it's here. The scents I love, maybe it's a couple gardenias right out of the yard or the garden, and that's that scent, or the tea olive, like I talked about earlier. But I also love when you find a diffuser or a candle that you love, commit to it. And I think it's kind of fun. It's when you have this grapefruit here and this Fraser fir there and this one, it kind of becomes this like weird potpourri. So I think if you just have something kind of simple and the rest of the senses will join the party, there's just nothing better than brownies or banana bread or something just baking in the oven. And I do that often for our clients before we reveal after an install. And one of my clients joked and she said, I didn't know our house had a kitchen because she doesn't cook. I love that there's nothing better than that kind of welcome home, and it's usually something baked. And so to me, that right there, you smell it, you're tasting it, it's almost like you're already there, and
Yeah.
I love that for our clients.
You sound like a foodie.
I
So
am.
you talk and you're speaking my language, but are there things that you're particularly looking forward to flavor wise come fall?
Okay, so I am. There are some flavors I'm looking forward to for fall. September, I've talked about it being kind of peaches and pumpkins.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not ready to give up pesto and tomatoes just yet. I'm just not. It's so good. And to me, the best of the summer season is actually now. The first tomatoes, the first watermelon, they're not the best. These they have vintage.
Yeah, they're ripe.
They are ripe. They are
They're
ready.
they're good.
So I'm not ready for giving up. Like I ordered a grilled cheese from a local coffee shop today for lunch and had tomatoes put on. I'm like, don't let that go just yet. But what I am looking forward to, and actually I did this last night. So I was sauteing some squash and zucchini, and I love lemon thyme, and I put some lemon thyme in there, and it was so bright and yummy and delicious. I almost snipped a couple sage leaves, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready for sage just yet. But I'm really craving what I love or what I call vehicles for flavor. So to me, like sweet potatoes and butternut squash, like they always kind of get thrown in with, brown sugar or, you roast them to caramelize them and taste the sweet more. But I love them when they get a little savory put with them too. So whether it's like a kind of salt mix or a kind of a menu that I use for almost every dinner party, and it's a pork tenderloin and a big salad. The dessert is then the seasonal kind of thing. But the pork tenderloin, like right now, I do peaches in the summer and some sweet onions, and like you just bake it, and it just can't go wrong with it. In the fall, I'll do like sweet potatoes and or some other root vegetable. In the wintertime, I love to do kind of more like that deeper kind of savory thing. It'll be like the pork tenderloin with rosemary and maybe it's, white potatoes and it just gets a little heartier. And then spring, it's so good with like asparagus and kind of those tender, like early spring green and things like that. Big salad, you just kind of, lemon vinaigrette and you can seasonally dress it. So that said, it's like each season has something, but it's also kind of a standard menu and you just kind of flavor it for the seasons. I think what I'm most excited about though is my grandmother had an apple cake that she made in the fall. I looked at Frank yesterday and I said, I'm ready for Mimi's apple cake.
Oh.
And I'm like, let's go. So it's so good. It's the recipes in my first book, A Time to Plant, and it's just happy and easy to make, and it's great with whipped cream or ice cream or toasted the next day with a cup of coffee for breakfast. So I think apple cake's what I'm really looking forward to.
Those family recipes too are always, like you said, like the apple cake. There's something sentimental about pulling those out too. It's not just delicious, that's
Right.
memories. Let's go back to the book for a second because I want to make sure people have the opportunity to, number one, find it because at the time of this conversation coming out, it's already out in the world.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk about that first? Where can people find it? And more specifically, we were just talking a moment ago, they can get signed copies.
Yes. My books, all my titles, signed copies, jamesfarmer.com. And James Farmer signs the books. So if you want
Perfect.
Happy Birthday, Allie, or Merry Christmas, Susan, or just want it generically signed, jamesfarmer.com for all of my titles. And that's the best place to order books and to get them signed.
Wonderful. Well, I'll make sure in the show notes of the episode, we'll have a link to your website. You have a couple of different areas we can direct people to, so we'll make sure to do
Awesome.
that, including social media, because I know personally, being someone who follows you, you're always posting on there, and it's a great way for them to keep up with you. I just thank you for taking the time to be here today. This was such a lovely conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.